Oh, that. Hello, everybody. Today, welcome to the Mikestand. Today is, of course, Monday, November the 24th, 2025. Hopefully, everybody had a good week, and hopefully, you guys had a chance to check out last night's historical comics retrospective as Apex and I went over some stories from, of course, Cyclone Comics, Volume 1, Issue 3 from Harvey Comics, known back then as Worth Carnahan. At least that book was out of Worth Carnahan, but anyways, we're gonna give people a chance to come in, of course, before we get started. If you haven't already, if you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage, it'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, of course, I was able to get through all of November 1942 on my cartoon watching today, including watching the last black and white cartoon of Terry Toons, Ickle Meets Pickle. After November of 1942, all the Terry Toons became the fourth company to go all color. After, of course, Walt Disney, MGM, and Walter Lantz. So, let me see. So just doing something here a little quick. Yeah. Let's see. Just trying to see if I can get a few more followers or viewers anyways. So let me see now. Who else? Send it to. All right, let's see a couple people. All right. So, anyways, all right. Again, a friendly reminder before I go into the what will be on tap for tonight. Friendly reminder to everybody, of course, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream so we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. With that being said, let's talk about what's on tap tonight. So I've got a couple articles I'm going to go over from Bleeding Fool. Depending upon how fast we get through those, maybe I'll add a third article. One of them, of course, is talking about the latest the latest auction news in terms of how much the latest latest price for a Superman 1 comic book. And also we got a little debate about, or a little thing about anime versus Hollywood. The last refuge of human creativity. We're going to look at that. Plus, of course, we'll get caught up in all the weekend's wrestling action. You know, of course, Friday Night SmackDown. And full, AEW's Full Gear pay-per-view. We'll look at that. We will also, of course, let's see. We'll also get caught, and then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. Looking back on some of the stuff that happened in the past. Also, we'll of course look ahead to tonight's Raw, as tonight's Raw will be the go-home Raw before this Saturday's Survivor Series. It may actually be the last live WWE event before Survivor Series, as this Friday's SmackDown was previously taped this past Friday. So with that being said, mind you, why don't we get into the material here? Get into the first article we're going to go over here. And again, just one last friendly reminder here, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the screen, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, let's get into this first article here. Making sure everybody here is seeing it. All right. Alrighty then. So, anime versus Hollywood, the last refuge of human creativity. Article by Brian Niemeyer, published November. Well, okay, that's okay. I guess. November 23rd. Look like 25 right. I'm going, what? We're not on 25. No, November 23rd, 2023, which of course was yesterday. All right, so for years now, Western audiences have sensed trouble lurking beneath the glitzy veneer of Hollywood. The lights are still on, the studios still churn out billion-dollar blockbusters, and the press still insists the industry is healthy. But the soul has long since fled the undead revenant. So I guess Brian here is comparing Hollywood to a graveyard, the zombie land. Where once artists made stories that illuminated the human condition, we now have gray goo content generated by committee or worse, machine. That's a crisis It's a Gundam captures in his recent video, quote, anime, the last bastion of creativity and the Western problem, unquote. Now, of course, over the past 5 to 10 years here, there's been an ongoing issue of people in the West here, a certain crowd here in the West, trying to influence Japanese creators, against, trying to get them to change what they do. Against their better judgment. Basically, the idea here is like, part of the reason why fans are in love with anime or like anime so much is because it's, they want they want what the Japanese are producing, as opposed to what a lot of these modern day wokesters want to produce or want to be produced. We continue on here. His premise is simple. Japanese creators are still making art that entertains and even moves audiences. Meanwhile, the West recycles product for a moribund culture. The comparison has become unavoidable when Demon Slayer Infinity Castle outgrosses Superman and Fantastic Four combined. Wow! Ouch! That hurts. You know that forces beyond market dynamics are at work. We're watching a civilizational inversion wherein the old cultural center has rotted and life flourishes only at the periphery. I like Brian's style of communication here. He utilizes vocabulary very well. Nor is Hollywood's decline an accident. It's the logical endpoint of a spiritual bankruptcy that has infected every layer of Western cultural production. Corporate art follows the pattern of corporate man. Unable to believe in anything transcendent, he fills the void with technical spectacle and empty moral signaling. That last part, also known as virtue signaling, I believe. We can't even call the result bad art. It's anti-art, spawned from a spreading strain of aesthetic entropy. You go get him, Brian. Art in the Christian West was once an act of participation in divine creation. From the cathedrals to the great novels, artists sought to reveal the order, beauty, and moral structure revealed in the world. That metaphysical foundation made creativity possible. A cosmos of telos invites exploration. A meaningless universe can only be copied, not unveiled. Hollywood severed itself from this wellspring long ago. When you reduce man to a bundle of appetites and the world to an airport terminal duty-free store, your art becomes propaganda or parody. Quote-unquote representation replaces revelation. Empty spectacle substitutes for vision. In contrast, the best of Japan's creators still see the world as enchanted. Even when they aren't consciously religious, their works are infused with moral tension between duty and desire, body and spirit, mundanity and transcendence. I really like Brian's articulation here. The way he's articulating his thoughts here in this article is very good. Hey, Metal, thanks for popping in. Friendly reminder, of course, if you haven't already, you can help out by liking and sharing the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. Let me just check something here. All right. Now getting back to the article here. All right. Metal, since you're here, let me ask you about So what do you think of this last comparative pair of paragraphs that I'm gonna read now, Metal? If you're still here, I'm gonna read this particular section over again because what I want is I would like if you would share in the chat. I'd like to kind of see your thoughts on this last pair of paragraphs here. I'm gonna read it again, just in case you missed a portion of it when I first read it. I want to, if you're still here, I want to see if you have any thoughts on this comparative pair of paragraphs here. So, Hollywood severed itself from this wellspring long ago. When you reduce man to a bundle of appetites and the world to an airport terminal duty free store, your art becomes propaganda or parody. Quote unquote representation replaces revelation. Empty spectacle substitutes for vision. In contrast, the best of Japan's creators still see the world as enchanted. Even when they aren't consciously religious, their works are infused with moral tension between duty and desire, body and spirit, mundanity and transcendence. Now, metal, those two, that kind of comparative statement that Brian Niemeyer made right there. Any thoughts you want to share on that? On those thoughts that he shared? Oh, I'm busy doing chores after my stream. I'm not trying to have thoughts on much. Well, since the article is about anime versus Hollywood, I just figured, and you're another anime expert, maybe even more one than I am. Wanted to just again kind of get your thoughts on that particular statement. But if you don't have any at the moment, that's okay. I'm just, like I said, just trying to stir up conversation as I always do. Anyways, you can share if you want. I guess I'll just move on to the next part of the story, part of the next paragraph. Then, um, but again, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to chime in. All right, so a show like Demon Slayer strikes a chord in the West because it assumes there is good and evil, that courage and purity aren't just abstractions. Western entertainment, enslaved to irony and ideology, has forgotten how to portray those timeless themes. In the Gundam's video, also highlights a telling symbol of this decay. AI generated subtitles are rife on Crunchyroll, the same corporate mindset that turned Western movies into algorithmic um, mush now infects the anime industry as it's absorbed by global megacores. It's not exactly a novel statement to announce that Hollywood is devoid of soul. I guess, considering what we've seen the last few years, you're probably right there. It's not a novel statement. I think by now it's probably a pretty fair conclusion that Hollywood has no soul. As Brian pointed out in the first part of his article here, you could argue that Hollywood is zombie land. uh, Anyways, as we continue on here, um, the AI subtitle debacle um, is a microcosm of art's ongoing mechanization. The algorithm can produce coherent sentences, but it cannot know their meaning. In short, it can't love what it imitates. That's why corporate attempts to automate storytelling always end in absurd. Yeah, and that, from my perspective, that's why I prefer to talk to people as opposed to just texting them. Because yeah, you can write words out, but the thing about words is words can have many different interpretations, and depending upon the situation and the circumstances and the and the moment at hand, you don't know which interpretation you may not always be able to pick up on which interpretation is appropriate for any given moment, right? You know, um, so I mean, like when somebody uses the word bread, right? Bread, most people would think bread as in, the stuff you eat. But bread has, at certain times in history, been used to also indicate, be kind of a slang for money as well. So depending upon how it's used, you know. But sometimes if you just type that out, you may not always. Sometimes you can pick up on the context based on, what else is being said within the state, but you don't always pick up on tone or like, you know like when you read something, right? You can't always know what the intent behind it is because you don't necessarily know what the emotion. Like reading something isn't the same as hearing a person say it and hearing like the the intonation, the tone, the pitch, the volume, all that. To indicate like things like emotional weight, significance, and all that. You know, but anyways, getting back to the article here. When Japanese fans revolt against Western censorship and localization, they may think they're just defending authenticity, but what they're also doing is insisting that art retain meaning. Translation translation used to be translation used to be a sacred duty to bridge cultures. Now it's a tool for ideological flirtation. Yeah, America is supposed to be a melting pot, not a factory. As It's a Gundam points out, Western companies rewrite dialogue, invert morals, and sanitize themes to align with our dying elites' neuroses. It's no coincidence that this cultural imperialism parallels the political decay now running rampant in the West. But anime's success isn't some arcane secret. It's simply due to Japan still knowing how to tell stories. And also, hopefully, with many manga, because basically, if when the West starts trying to mess with their material, you know, just gladly flipping the West the bird, as it were. Some of these corporates the bird. Hmm. The key difference is moral seriousness. My Hero Academia might feature superpowered teens, but it grapples with courage in the face of adversity and dealing with the burden of legacy. Compare that thematic maturity to Disney's endless output of ironic, self deconstructing parodies where no one believes in anything. When the West rejects beauty, order, and truth, it rejects the conditions that allow art to begin with. Prince Mikestan's line from The Idiot, quote, "Beauty will save the world," unquote, is proving prophetic because beauty is a manifestation of divine order. To make a work of beauty is to cooperate, however imperfectly, with the creator of all. Current year Hollywood cannot make beauty because it no longer believes in the sacred. Now that, wow. There, that's quite a damning statement right there. That picture's quite a damning statement, isn't it? As we said, Hollywood becoming zombie land. Hmm. Anime, by contrast, often moves the viewer toward the sort of wonder that echoes the transcendent. Even its violence and sorrow point upward. The wonder is that, for all its secularization, Japan's main art form insists there is something higher than self gratification, and the truth and virtue are worth dying for. Even Western elites now sense that anime is the only corner of mass culture that still attracts loyalty. Their first impulse, as always, is to consume what they cannot create. That's why Sony and Netflix are buying anime studios and planning live action adaptations nobody asked for. And for the most part, a lot of these live action adaptations basically end up getting skewered at the box office. They never seem to work out the way that they planned, with maybe a couple of exceptions. But the pattern is already written. Whatever big studios touch dies. They cannot comprehend that anime's appeal lies in its differences from Western media. In chasing an ephemeral aesthetic or format, Hollywood is missing the essential moral coherence and craftsmanship. Strip those elements away, and you're left with the same empty skin suit IP they've made of every other global franchise. If you want to predict the future, watch the captured institutions of the West. Try to assimilate. Then look elsewhere for new life. The artists who will carry the torch aren't in Burbank or Soho. They're drawing storyboards in Tokyo, coding visual novels in Krakow, and publishing serialized fiction on Substack. Hmm. When Western audiences flock to Demon Slayer, they are not escaping reality but seeking it. They're drawn to worlds where virtue matters, where beauty redeems, and where the human soul still stands in relation, however distant, to the divine. That's why anime feels alive. It remembers what art is for. So do not mourn Hollywood's collapse. We are witnessing the death of a culture that destroyed meaning in a foolish attempt to manufacture its own. But the creative flame hasn't gone out, it's just migrated eastward for now. Much like that last statement that I just read right there reminds me of a Japanese funeral ritual where they basically light these like rectangular type lanterns and put them on on some kind of water, whether it's like a stream or river or something like that, and release them, almost acting, as I understand, what the rituals intent is. It's usually to help the souls of those who've just passed on, make their way to the next life, as it were, or to the next realm. And again, don't know if you're still within earshot, Metal. Don't know if you have anything more to say on what I just said there. Everybody's thoughts, of course, are appreciated here, in terms of perspective. But anyways, we, of course, let me move on to the next. So, all right, so what It's a Gundam calls the quote-unquote last bastion of creativity serves as a reminder. You cannot automate subcreation when the West rediscovers that truth, when we again make art that points towards transcendence, then beauty may indeed save the world. And then, of course, I guess Brian's book here, I guess is his book, or let's see. The highly anticipated crowdfunder for book 3 in my record-breaking Arkwright cycle goes live next month. Don't miss a single insider update with a perk or exciting goal. Check out Kairos Publications.com, SOE now. So I guess that's his book right there. So alrighty then. So there we go with the first article of the evening. Now we'll get ready to move on to the next one here, which is comic book one. Talking about the latest transaction of a Superman #1 comic. And this next article, of course, is going to be our old buddy Avi Green. See what he has to say on this next article that we're going to go over here. All right, so we're already. All right. Recently found Superman comic sells at auction for over $9 million. Article by Avi Green published today. Of course, there's Superman #1. You see there. A classic back issue of Superman, which I think I'd written about before, was sold for tons on the speculator market, per the Hollywood Reporter. This is from the Hollywood Reporter article. A comic found in an attic has just become the most expensive comic of all time. A copy of Superman #1, the 1939 issue, that introduced the Man of Steel in his first solo title, and astonishingly in near pristine condition, sold for $9.12 million Thursday at an auction run by Heritage. $9.12 million. That price handily beats the previous record set only in 2024 when Action Comics #1, the comic that first introduced the Kryptonian hero to the world, sold for $6 million. Before that, a copy of Superman #1 held the record with a sale of $5.3 million in 2022, while a copy of 1962's Amazing Fantasy #15, the first appearance of Spider-Man, sold for $3.6 million in 2021. All right, so I say it's nothing worth making a big deal about, and besides, chances are it'll soon be making the rounds again for over $10 million next. The real reason to celebrate would be if the back issue were contributed to a museum, and to date, the speculators in charge of circulating the back issue are unlikely to ever consider that as a possibility, which is exactly why these auctions are such a blemish upon the medium. Now, of course, Avi giving his own opinion there. So, um, but anyways, um, alrighty then. So we're done with the two articles I was going to go over tonight. That second one was pretty short. So let's see. We did spend quite a bit of time on the first one there. So 3 minutes. I think I am going to go ahead and move on to the wrestling wrap up here because we do have quite a bit to talk about. Of course, not just from over the weekend, but also as we head into this weekend's Survivor Series, this Saturday's Survivor Series. So first off, let's go ahead and look back to last Friday's SmackDown. Let's talk a little bit about that. As it looks like now all the matches for Survivor Series are finally coming to a head. We'll get to that here in a moment. First off, let's go back to Friday Night SmackDown, as that was the last live SmackDown before this Saturday's Survivor Series, as they recorded 2 episodes that night. One of course, one that went live, the other that will be shown this Friday. So this past Friday's SmackDown, coming from the from the Bell Arena in Denver, Colorado. Michael Cole and Corey Graves on commentary. Let's actually get to the results, not the card. On this past Friday's SmackDown, of course, in another open challenge, Ilya Dragunov retained the United States title, in this case against J.D. McDonough of the Judgment Day, as of course since defeating Sami Zayn for that title. Ilya Dragunov has continued the open challenges, giving other guys a chance to 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 shine a bit. In the first of the two first round matches in the last time is now tournament, to pick John Cena's opponent at his final match on Saturday night's event on December 13th. Carmelo Hayes defeated Bronson Reed via countout as Cody Rhodes came out and delivered a crossroads to Bronson Reed while the referee wasn't looking, and for Bronson Reed to get counted out of the match. In a tag team match, DIY of Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano with Candice LeRae in their corner defeated the team of Fraxium of Axiom and Nathan Frazier. And in the main event, saw in the other first round match in the last time is now tournament on the men's side, or actually, I'm sorry, the last time is now tournament. Penta defeated Finn Balor of Judgment. So Judgment Day didn't really have a good night on Friday night. They both fell short of their respective goals, but Penta would so that's all that happened on, of course, last Friday's SmackDowns. This Friday was taped this past Friday. We'll talk about that on Wednesday. But now getting ready to, of course, move on to what went down on Saturday at the Full Gear pay-per-view for AEW. Of course, there was also before the pay-per-view itself, there was a special edition of Collision, the Tailgate Blast Party. So coming from the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey, with Excalibur, Nigel McGuinness, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. The Collision episode Saturday Tailgate Brawl for Full Gear. Opening match of that show saw in a $200,000 four-way tag team match, the Bang Bang Gang of Austin Gunn and Juice Robinson defeated the team formerly known as the Acclaimed of Anthony Bowens and Max Caster, Big Bill and Brian Keith, and the Outrunners of Turbo Floyd and Truth Magnum. Some more tag team action. Boom and Doom of Big Boom AJ and QT Marshall with Aaron Solo, Big Justice, and the Rizzler in their corner defeated RPG Vice, also known in Japan as Roppongi Vice, of Trent Beretta and Rocky Romero. Eddie Kingston and Hook defeated the Workhorsemen in just under 2 minutes of JD Drake and Anthony. And in the main event that bled into the opening of the pay-per-view as well, in a match for the CMLL World Trios titles, the champions El Sky team of Mascara Dorada, Mystico, and Neon Alex Abramahantes in their corner retained the titles over the Don Callis family members of Hechicero, AEW United Champion, or Unified Champion, Kazuchika Okada and IWGP World Champion Konosuke Takeshita. Now, of course, as we get into also, as I said, it bled into now that portion of the show, of course, happened on TNT. And now we're going to get into the pay-per-view portion of the show, kind of describe what all went down there. On that. So at Full Gear, of course, the show opened up with from the Prudential Center with now Bryan Danielson coming in on commentary as well. Show opened up with, of course, the finish of the CML World Trios titles match. And then after that, the next match was Pack of the Death Riders defeating Darby Allin in just under 17 minutes. In a four-way tag team match, the Timeless Love Bombs of Mina Shirakawa and four-time AEW Women's World Champion Toni Storm defeated the Babes of Wrath of Harley Cameron and former TNT champion, or former TBS champion, rather, Willow Nightingale. Megan Bayne and Marina Shafir, of course, Marina Shafir of the Death Riders, with Penelope Ford in their corner, and the Sisters of Sin of the Triangle of Madness of Sky Blue and Julia Hart. In a match for the AEW World Tag Team titles, actually, the FTR would actually tie. I initially thought they already had been three-time champions, but I was corrected here when I saw the news. So FTR would officially tie the record for most reigns as AEW World Tag Team Champion with the Young Bucks at 3 now. Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler with Stokely Hathaway in their corner by defeating the team of Brodito of Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito and Brody King. In a match to crown the first ever AEW national title, the Gauntlet match, Ricochet won the match, outlasting, of course, members of the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin, members of the Death Riders, including Claudio Castagnoli, Daniel Garcia, Wheeler Yuta, also members of the Don Callis family of Mark Davis, Jet Speed, Speedball Mike Bailey, and the Jet Kevin Knight, Collaboration members Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong, and that was it. Then in a no holds barred match, Kyle O'Reilly defeated John Moxley with Marina Shafir in her corner. Basically, not a very good. I don't think it's a very good night for the Death Riders, as with the exception of Pac, everybody else lost. And no disqualification match for the TNT title, in which if he lost, Mark Briscoe would have to quit the conglomeration and join the Don Callis family. Mark Briscoe defeated Kyle Fletcher to become the new AEW TNT champion. In a $1 million six-man tag team challenge match, Josh Alexander of the Don Callis family teamed with the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson, to defeat Kenny Omega and the Jurassic Express of Jack Perry and Luchasaurus. Let's see. In a match of the AEW Women's World Title, Chris Statlander was able to successfully defend her title against Mercedes Moné, keeping Moné from adding another title to her already growing collection. And the main event in the steel cage match for the AEW World Title, Samoa Joe defeated Hangman Adam Page, become the new world champion. In a match that saw a couple of big things happen, saw Hook turn heel and rejoin the Ops as such, and the return of Swerve Strickland in what is looking like a possibility of maybe Strickland looking to once again become the AEW World Champion. So we'll be watching for that. Hey, Vincenzo, thanks for dropping in. Look at the Campeon 2012. All right. Don't know what that's supposed to mean, but okay. Oh yeah, I think there was an anime called Campeon, I guess. Is that what you may be referring to? But anyways, so let's see. So now at least so that's all that went down. Of course, we'll see what happens on Dynamite this Wednesday in the aftermath of Full Gear here. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about what to look forward to on tonight's Monday Night Raw. WWE will have its Go Home Raw before this Saturday's Survivor Series. That being said, let's see. As soon as I grab that. So on tonight's Monday Night Raw, coming from the Paycom Center in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. There's going to be, of course, a War Games Advantage match for the men's side to see who will actually get the advantage there. In two quarterfinals for the Last Time Is Now tournament, the tournament to determine John Cena's last opponent ever, or this upcoming or the next tonight's main event. Carmelo Hayes will take on Gunther, and Penta will take on Solo Sikoa. And then in another singles match, Rey Mysterio will be taking on JD McDonough of the Judgment Day. So that's all we got on the wrestling wrap up. So now with everything being said and done there, with today being, of course, today being Monday, November the 24th, 2025. Let's go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history. History! So it's let's clear it up here. All right. So first up, we're going to head back 60 years ago today. As on this date, 60 years ago today, back in the year 1965. The 105th issue of Donald Duck from Gold Key went on sale on this date back in 1965. Now, mind you, this comic was published by Dell Comics until Gold Key took over at issue number 84, or starting at issue number 85. Sorry. So Dell basically published the first 84 issues of this comic. Starting at issue 85, Gold Key took over. So on this date, 60 years ago today, the 105th issue of Donald Duck, Walt Disney's Donald Duck from Gold Key, went on sale on its date back in 1965, 60 years ago today. And 1965 is just so nice that we're going to hit it twice. Is also on this date back in 1965, 60 years ago today. And that year. On this date, 60 years ago today. Giant Baba would defeat Dick the Bruiser to win the vacant NWA International Heavyweight Championship in Osaka, Japan. Now, of course, NWA International Championship was the main title that was defended primarily in Japan for most of its existence. It was eventually merged into the modern day All Japan Triple Crown. Throughout, obviously this was probably the main title, one of the main titles of the Japan Wrestling Association back in the 50s and 60s, and then of course the title was taken over by All Japan when JWA closed in the early 70s. After, of course, after in 1972 when Antonio Inoki left JWA to start up New Japan, and the following year Shoei Giant Baba, left JWA to start up All Japan. This title would eventually become part of the Triple Crown, along with the PWF Heavyweight Champion and the NWA United National Championship. That was 60 years ago today. And then, oops, I forgot to do that part. Now, for the last thing, as we move ahead to the year 2010, on this date, 15 years ago today, a couple of movies came out. So, Fire Breather, an American animated CGI superhero television film based on the Image comic series of the same name, premiered on November 24th and 10 on the Cartoon Network. It was directed by Peter Chung from a screenplay by James Krieg, based on the story by Phil Hester and Andy Kuhn, and stars the voices of Jesse Head, Dana Delaney, Kevin Michael Richardson, Reed Diamond, Dante Brosco, Tia Tejada, and Amy Davidson. And also aside from that was from Cartoon Network Studios. But also, Tangled also premiered on this date back in 2010, 15 years ago. Tangled is a 2010 American animated musical fantasy comedy film produced by Walt Disney Animation Studios, loosely based on the German fairy tale Rapunzel, in the collection of folk tales published by Brothers Grimm. The film was directed by Nathan Grino and Brian Howard, written by Dan Fogelman, featuring the voices of Mandy Moore, Zachary Levi, and Donna Murphy. Tangled tells the story of Rapunzel, a young princess with magical long blonde hair, who tries to leave her secret tower. She accepts the aid of an intruder, the outlaw Flynn Rider, to take her out into the world, which she has never seen. All right. So there we go with that. So that's all we got for you guys tonight. Hope everybody enjoyed the show. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow with more Niche News. Also, I'll be joined this Sunday by Rick Piper of Cross Comics. We'll be continuing our trip down Comics History Lane, looking back to comics that went on sale in July of 1940. Programming note reminder for this week: we're only doing shows up through Wednesday this week, as we won't be doing shows for Thanksgiving or Black Friday. So we'll be wrapping the week up on Wednesday. So with that, I thank everybody for being here and hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.